The Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. This episode of Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Alex has a brand new graphic novel coming out from Marvel and Abrams Books, Fantastic Four Full Circle. It comes out September 6th. It's a rainy night in Manhattan, and not a creature is stirring except for the Thing, Ben Grimm. When an intruder suddenly appears inside the Baxter Building, the Fantastic Four find themselves surrounded by a swarm of invading parasites. These carrion creatures, composed of negative energy, come to Earth using a human host as a delivery system. But for what purpose? And who is behind this untimely invasion? The Fantastic Four have no choice but to journey to the Negative Zone, an alien universe comprised entirely of antimatter, risking not just their own lives, but the fate of the cosmos. Fantastic Four Full Circle is the first long-form work written and illustrated by acclaimed artist Alex Ross, who revisits a classic Lee Kirby story from the 60s and introduces the storyline for a new generation of readers. Bold, vivid colors, his trademark visual storytelling, Ross takes Marvel's first team of superheroes to places only he can illustrate. The book also features a special poster jacket with the front flap unfolding to reveal an all-new fully painted origin story of the Fantastic Four. Again, Fantastic Four Full Circle, out September 6th. For more details, go to AlexRossArt.com. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, live. The Comic Book Conversation Show. John Suntress here. Look who's here, my buddy Phil Hester. Good to see you.
Hey, Phil. John. What I want to know is how am I supposed to feel good about my work after you make me look at 3 minutes of Alex Ross?
No.
Alex Ross's masterpiece sliding across my screen.
Phil, I am beyond delighted of what you've got coming with Tom King, Gotham City Year One, and you're going to eat those words. And I know you don't need as, okay, don't need as much as you used to, but you'll have room for those words.
We'll see.
Dude, I am so excited for this book, truly. And I'm so glad that you and Tom got together on this. So I know this is something that's been burning with Tom. We've talked about it on the show. But tell me, did he pitch you with this? How did you get involved?
Yeah, it's I don't know how long it's been percolating with Tom, but I feel like I'm on a really big roll with excellent collaborators for like the last 5 or 6 years. I've just been working with really like superior writers, and I feel really spoiled. And I think each gig is sort of rolled into the next gig. So like, when somebody saw, Family Tree, it led to a short story with Rom V. And I think the Rom V story probably led to this. And so I really love doing this. I did a Riddler Batman story with Rom V last year for the Valentine special. And I think that put me into the Batman office minds a little bit. And so when Tom was looking for the right person for this Gotham City book, that certainly was a helpful nudge.
That's interesting because obviously, you've had great runs at DC, obviously Green Arrow back in the day. And, I love still, I can't remember if it was Adventures of Superman, but the Toyman story you did with Clay Moore.
Oh, it was Superman Confidential.
Superman Confidential. Absolutely, man. No, so
I had a year where I was following Darwin Cook on all his books. So I finished Superman Confidential for him, and then I did like the last issue of The Spirit too. So
oh wow, that's amazing. Was that with Loeb?
No, that was with Gail Simone.
Gail Simone, fantastic. Oh yeah, man. But yeah, that's the thing. So do you feel, and Swamp Thing, of course, your great run on Swamp Thing. So did you feel like with the changing of editors and stuff that you fell off the radar with DC for a second?
No, not really, because I've been steadily working there pretty much, either as a writer or as an artist. It's sort of I'm sort of either at Image or DC these days, which is, a great feeling. With little side jaunts for other, different properties, but DC's been keeping me busy. I can't complain. And this is definitely, but all that said, this is, I had that big run on, well, for me, it felt big, but for the reading public, it was probably very short because Justice League was double shipping at the time. But I did quite a few Justice Leagues last year also.
Sure.
And so it's been like a kind of a constant barrage for me at DC right now. And I did Superman in action and at the beginning of Philip Kennedy Johnson's run.
Yes, of course.
So yes. I've been there. I've been pretty busy. But this is definitely like probably the biggest thing I've done there since Green Arrow for sure.
Excellent, man. No, and I'm so glad you mentioned those other ones. And 300 books a month and stuff. I totally forgot. Shame on me.
Yeah.
And certainly people watching, if you want to talk about some of the, more recent or even going back with Phil. And of course, his collaborations with Andy Parks and stuff. I mean, always great stuff. So yeah, whatever anybody wants to talk about, but the opportunity to do Slam Bradley. I love Slam Bradley. I just think what a great character. We mentioned Darwin Cook, certainly what he and Brubaker did with him in the Catwoman run. Was just fantastic. And Darwin's solo that he did years ago and stuff. So yeah, I mean, big affinity for Slam on your part.
Oh, sure, yeah, and in fact, it's I think Ben Abernathy, our editor on the book, thought of me because he hired me for a Slam Bradley book about 10 years ago, when DC was just starting their digital first books. I did a Slam Bradley one shot with Josh Fialkov. That was really a blast to do, and it sort of set the template for how I would handle Slam Bradley, and I just kept that rolling. Like, to me, that when Ben called to talk to me about it, he was like, "Yeah, he's like, it's incredible. This the book you started working with Eric Gapster on." I was like, that can't be true because that was 10 years ago, or 12 years ago. But it is true. Eric has been my primary inker for that time period too, since Andy sort of semi-retired.
That's excellent, man. No, and again, he brings out your best. So that's another great collaboration, and I'm so glad. Yeah. No, these images are incredible, and obviously we. I don't know, is the book out next week or a couple weeks?
It'll be out October 4th, I believe.
Okay, next Tuesday.
Yeah,
great.
and so yeah, it's coming out fast and furious, and it's been percolating here. We've been working on it kind of, I feel like, secretly during this time, but I've known, so I'm glad everyone else is going to know what I know and what Eric Apster has known and what Clayton and what Jordy have known. It's a really special book. And I think, I don't know if you've talked to Tom about it or will talk to Tom about it, but I think the thing it does that's kind of magical is that it adds something to the Batman mythos without subtracting anything from the Batman mythos. So it doesn't do any of that sort of everything you knew is wrong sleight of hand. It's an honest like exploration of the underpinnings of what the environment that gave birth to Batman.
And the decay of the environment as well. I mean, obviously, again, and also the fact that we're dealing with Bruce's grandparents rather than his parents, and it takes place in 1961, which is great. It's that. Go ahead. I mean, I was going to say it's that great Ed McGuinness paperback. Like the tail end of that great period in the 50s and 60s of paperbacks, and I'm sure that those kind of images obviously might be influencing.
Oh yeah, it's sort of the death of the mid-century vibe. Yes. It is. We're into that, like we're in that Mad Men era where that post-war momentum that America has starts to dissipate a little bit and get weird, and that is definitely the world that Slam Bradley finds himself in, and he's definitely a character of an older time, and you can tell just his code of honor, the way he dresses, but the stuff he runs into in this story is sort of challenges his ethos. And it challenges like the solutions he used. Like you could just crack somebody on the jaw and solve the case back then, and that's not quite the case now. And so it's I, I I very rarely have been so surprised reading a script. Like the twists and turns are huge and they're really earned, and so it's a very satisfying book to get to work on. I feel sort of I sometimes worry that I'm up to the challenge, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, you can see all the responses from everybody that's watching right now, including Stepan Sedgwick, who says that I open with Alex Stress to give other artists credit.
Yes, it's true. So does Stepan.
That is not true. That is not true. Without spoiling,
Yes.
may we see other kind of Silver Agey characters in the story beyond Slam?
Is it a spoiler to say no? We won't. It's just focused on Gotham City, and
Sure.
it's just focused on Slam Bradley, and
Okay.
it's a very boy. I mean, I want to call it a noir because it has all the trappings of a noir. It actually has multiple femme fatales.
Fantastic.
It has, cops rubbing Slam the wrong way, Slam rubbing cops the wrong way, several red herrings, several unexpected murders, and then it gets, like all Tom things, it gets deep and it gets existential about, the role violence plays in American life. And it
Absolutely.
really does a deep dive into that.
That's great to hear, man. Here, Stepan has another observation. I've always loved the idea of exploring the Gotham era of organized crime and before the chaos of supercrime. I love that about the first season of Gotham show as well, that it went deep into supervillain. I completely agree. And also, as we said, the decline of the 20th century. And that's really exciting. And also, so we're seeing initially a more pristine Gotham, although, I mean, some of these images, like, the great shots of Slam going through, whatever neighborhood this is.
Yeah, he'll find the gritty neighborhoods no matter how clean your city is. But it's definitely the city on the hill era of Gotham City. And there's a price to pay to have a city that's at least outwardly clean. So there's very LA Confidential kind of vibes to this story.
Chinatown, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a reason Gotham City's so clean, and that's not pretty. And Slam's at the heart of that.
Hey, I'm talking to you from Chicago, as you well know.
Yes, yeah.
So very familiar with those kinds of, dirty details and everything.
Yeah.
As far as how we got from there to here and everything. So no, I get it. And that is so great. And Slam, again, is that great character. It evokes, and I wonder with your designs, because of course Slam has a very distinct look, but I think of those great 70s Robert Mitchum, Philip Marlowe movies, where he plays senior citizen Marlowe. Yeah,
Mitchum is my model for the character.
That's excellent.
You can't quite do it. We're trying to hit somewhere between Mitchum and Alex Raymond's Heroes. We're trying to get somewhere between those two things.
Interesting.
Because as Gotham City goes through sort of a cycle of degeneration, so does Slam Bradley. So, he starts out all shiny and crisp and clean, and then he slowly gets, well, not slowly, but about halfway through the first issue, he starts getting his face busted up. And, we actually have to have a key. I make a key every issue of where all Slam Bradley's facial injuries are. So Jordy and Eric can keep track of where's a Band-Aid and where's a bruise. And because he keeps getting beat senseless every issue.
That's outstanding. That's, his name's Slam for a reason, man. That's great. So let's talk.
He returns the favor. He beats a few.
Sure. Come on, man.
But, he takes a beating.
Listen, and it's interesting. I didn't realize that, and I'm glad you guys did this. There's a disclaimer in issue 1, apparently, warning people that this does take place in a different time, and that again, it's an appreciation of context, and it's not to upset or shock people, but it's like, hey, this was the world
Yeah,
for worse, not for better or for worse. I mean, back then.
yeah,
And you gotta, I mean, again, living in Chicago, man, I lived
yeah.
in.
In '61, Gotham City, like most American cities, is really segregated, and it goes to the heart of the story, the way the police behave in different neighborhoods of Gotham City.
Yes.
And there's a crime that's committed at the very beginning of the story, a shocking crime that sort of steals the innocence of the entire city, and it sort of puts its finger on those pressure points, on those racial pressure points of Gotham City, and it pushes through them. So it's a big book. It's a lot of big ideas and a lot of ideas that aren't like easy to wrestle with, but sort of have to be explored.
No, I get it. We're midway through the Human Target story that Tom's doing with Greg Smallwood. Do you stay away from that? I mean, obviously
Yes,
you were already.
I'm not looking at that on purpose because, for one thing, I would also get demoralized from looking at Greg's work, just like I am from looking at Alex's. But also, I want to keep what we're doing a separate thing, and also I'm trying to do some new formal things with my storytelling, and I don't want to unconsciously duplicate some of the formalist things that Greg is doing in that book. So the approach I'm taking are the theme of the book is that little actions, good and bad, kind of reverberate throughout history. And so I'm trying to find visual elements that do that same thing. So I'll have a composition that repeats itself throughout different parts of the book. And if you're eagle-eyed, you can find those compositions again. But it's my way of saying, like, this composition, when it happened here, is impacting this moment later in the book, or this moment later, even later on the same page. So I'm trying to do some formalist stuff. And so I'm trying to stay away from what Greg is doing so I don't, unconsciously duplicate any of that.
I get it. Again, Stepan, as always, man, I really appreciate that you'll watch. It really is quite the compliment. So thank you very much. You're here for the guests. Don't kid. I don't kid myself. But Stepan says, Phil, your work is outstanding. Speaking as someone who's worked over your layouts back in Broken Trinity, I learned a lot on those books. That's fantastic.
That's very flattering of him to say. But he took my thumbnails and turned them into like works of art. So it was kind of a blast. I think I've said it before, maybe even on this show, that like if I had my dream job, it would be to do what Harvey Kurtzman did during the war books at EC, which is write and lay out books and then hand them off to great artists. And that's what Broken Trinity was like for me. I took Ron Mars's script, thumbnailed it, and then sent it off to a better artist to finish.
But you've been doing that recently as well at DC.
Yeah, I've been doing it a lot of places, which is a really fun thing to do. It's not in any way to denigrate the storytelling of the artists I'm working with, but sometimes they're in a bind time-wise, or sometimes they just need to be brought up to speed on a few finer points of storytelling. And editors know that I can do that, so sometimes they'll bring me on board to thumbnail a book for another artist. And for me, it's the most fun part of the process. So I definitely don't mind it.
And sometimes it's newcomers too, right?
Yeah, that's mostly it's newcomers. It's to get them, sort of boot camp them on storytelling, which is, is a fun thing to do.
But that's great, man. And again, it's paying it forward and show, again, you're a great storyteller. So it's an important skill that a lot of newcomers come in and they draw beautiful images, but storytelling might be, and again, this is my presumption, they may not be ready for thinking about panel composition or they're previously they were cover artists or
game illustrators or people that just weren't that concerned with, because it's a pretty specific skill. There's not that many people that are, we all fit in one convention center, the people that are good at it. So it's definitely a skill you have to learn.
That's excellent. Have you done any chalk talks with artists at all, like Chaikin and people like that?
No, I wish I could go to Howard's, but No, I haven't done any of those officially. No,
Okay,
just informal things at conventions and stuff like that. But
sure.
I haven't been airlifted to to DC or Marvel to get people up to speed.
I understand. Mentioning conventions, are you doing New York or any of the conventions
No,
coming up before the end of the
uh,
year?
well, this weekend I'm going to SuperCon in Sioux Falls, which is a neat little convention. Very like throwback to back. You remember when Chicago was at the Ramada and everybody was in the same hotel,
Yes,
and
I do.
it seemed like something was happening 24/7 at that hotel,
Yeah.
and that's what SuperCon's like. It's a small show, but everybody's together all the time, and there's always programming, and it's a lot of fun. So I always look forward to SuperCon in Sioux Falls, and then I'm doing a signing in Lincoln, Nebraska, for the first
Nice.
issue of at a place called Rainbow Comics, and that'll be October 5th, I think. So those are my two big upcoming events.
Well, and I hope that your schedule allows. I've heard through the grapevine that you and I might be at Terrificon next year.
I got in trouble for hinting that to somebody, so I'm blaming you now for breaking news.
Well, I want you there, man. I seriously, because King and I have had a blast there every year, man. Cully Hamner, Stephanie Phillips, and I were laughing our asses off.
Yeah.
Theo was there. So much fun. And
yeah,
really,
I think I will be there next year.
that's
so.
great to hear, man. Well, and again, sorry, Mitch, if I'm spoiling, but
No,
it
doesn't bother me.
No, and that's why I'm saying Mitch Alec, the organizer. But yeah, man, no, this is, as you know, and I know, and again, where even what you described with Sioux Falls and stuff, it's like I always refer to conventions as like really expensive summer camp, unless someone's paying the freight for us to be there, and it's like, hey, this is great, all of our out of town friends, we're hanging out, we're having a good time, you know.
You can't beat it. It's like one of the few businesses where you get paid to hang out with your friends.
Yes, 100%. Zach, go ahead. Excited for Gotham City Year 1. Been enjoying you back on some high-profile comics with high-profile writers like Bendis on Justice League and now Tom King. It's well-deserved. Very cool.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's been kind of breakneck too, because like I knew that Gotham City was coming up, and I kind of wanted to have a breather before then. Sure. But then Jurgens rolled up with an issue of Blue and Gold, and I was like, I can't say no to Dan. He's my fantasy football league commissioner, so I cannot say no to Dan Jurgens. He'll spike a trade if I say no to Dan Jurgens. So I squeezed an issue of that in there too. So I've been hyper busy.
How you been doing on fantasy football as we hit into week 4?
Unless Saquon Barkley goes for 200 yards tonight, I'm going to be 3-0. So I feel good.
Nice, fantastic.
And I was drafting from the end of the draft, so I feel pretty, not the very end, but kind of the worst spot, 9 of 12. And
yeah, that's not good.
I feel good about my year so far.
That's excellent, man. Very funny. Who's your team, Phil?
You mean my actual team that I like?
Who do
you mean my real team? I tend to root for AFC teams.
That's cool.
And I probably the Chiefs are my favorite team.
Okay.
But I grew up in Iowa, so I'm like a man without a country as far as the NFL goes.
That's what I mean. That's why I wondered if you had a team.
Yeah, so it's tough to have a team here because we're sort of trapped between the Vikings, the Packers, the Bears, and the Chiefs. For fandom and but being an AFC guy, and then my brother. Coach, my brother's a high school football coach.
I didn't realize. That's fantastic.
And he coached a bunch of guys that wound up playing for the Chiefs, so that sort of dragged me into Chiefs fandom too a little bit more.
Understood.
Plus, Andy's a huge Chiefs guy, and he's dragged me to Chiefs games.
That's great. That's fit. I've been bugging Andy. Phil, I don't know if you'd ever want to do it, because again, Central Time. But a lot of times, Gabe Hardman and I and Ian Brill will do old Hollywood stuff. We did a series of, first we did The Outer Limits.
Right.
Then we did Kinescope, talking about early television. And now we've been coming back with little specials every now and then about old movies. And I mean, I'm happy to put you in the loop if you're ever interested in doing it. It's late night. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be a crimp or not, but sometimes we'll start 10:30 our time.
I work late, so.
Attaboy, that's what I figured. Me too.
Like all comic book artists, I'm terrible at time management. So.
Phil, Yeah,
What time is it right now? This is like my lunch break.
it's
Yeah.
it's almost 8:30. No, I hear you, man. And truly, I don't know about you, but really since the pandemic and after, well, my last couple of years in broadcast radio, I was doing overnight traffic reporting.
Right.
So I was kind of used to.
Sometimes I would tune in just to hear your voice.
Did you really? That's so nice, man.
I can get BBM here, so I would tune in to hear your voice.
That's hilarious. Oh my God. That's fantastic, Phil. Well, I don't know why, but that plus the lockdown, my sleep is all over the place. I'll wake up at like 4 or 5,
Uh-huh.
do like 4 or 5 hours of work, go to sleep literally till like 2 in the afternoon, and then meander around and get shit done. And again, thank God. I mean, and really thank you everybody as far as the League of Word Balloon listeners and viewers and their support. This is what helps pay the bills, but also, I mean, this is why I'm doing so many shows, everybody. This is truly so that I can, kind of have almost a daily word balloon. And, it's almost like, I always look at word balloon like a magazine. And it's all right, here's another article, that kind of thing.
And it's also, it's one of the few podcasts that feels like a legit radio show.
Thanks,
like
man.
It feels like I'm on the air right now, partially because of your pipes, but but also because you have the timing and the patois of an experienced radio host.
Once I figure out how to spell patois, I'm going to use that as a pull quote for word balloon. That means a lot, man. Seriously, thank you. Stepan wants to know: are you ever going to bring back Fire Breather? Good question.
I would love to. So everyone tweeted Andy Kuhn and send him gifts, and they can be. I mean, even threats. All those things will work.
Can we?
As soon as Andy wants to come back and draw it, I'm ready to do it.
Can we get the animated Fire Breather like on a DVD or as a digital download?
I don't know. I think last I checked, you can get it on Amazon. Like you can buy it physically on Amazon.
Yeah,
I know it's on YouTube illegally, like crazy. Like it's kids ask, like whenever I bring it up at like a school talk or something, kids have seen it on YouTube. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
And also these kids are grown up now, which boggles my mind because to my mind this just happened. Like the show was just on, but it was 2010. So
I know that's what I was going to say. Absolutely, Phil. No, I hear you, man. It's like Jesus Christ. Where did the time go? I know.
Yeah. So all these kids that saw it in 2010 are all young adults now, and they ask me about it, and it's mind-boggling to me. And but it is a kind of a crash course to them in like the reality of just because you know about something doesn't mean it made the creators rich and famous. I mean, we were fairly compensated for that show, and it did really well for us. I'm not going to complain, but it was so expensive to make for Cartoon Network. It was the most expensive thing they had ever made. I was told at the time.
Wow.
And so an executive said, if we're going to spend this kind of money, why don't we do something we own instead of these two yokels? Why don't we do something that, we own? And so that was sort of the end of Fire Breather as a going concern at Cartoon Network. But
Andy, go on. Yeah. But
yeah, I would certainly like to see it continue as a comic book.
Well, and Andy, if you're listening rather than watching, Stepan Sejic says he volunteers for some variant covers, and he loved the animated movie. Yeah, no kidding. That'd be great. Oh, my God. So very cool, man. And I'm so glad people are asking about your creator-owned stuff as well. Graboid says, Phil, The Coffin and Deep Sleeper are two of my all-time favorite comics. Do you have plans to do more writing soon?
Well, thank you so much, Graboid. But I'm always writing. I always have stuff in the hopper. It's just that, since I do both things, since I both write and draw, there's sort of natural ebbs and flows in the kind of assignments I can get.
Sure.
And for the most part, when I'm writing stuff, it's usually creator-owned stuff. I mean, I get occasional stuff from DC also, but
sure.
And that takes a while to boot up. You kind of have to find an artist. And artists are hard to come by these days. They're in high demand. And you've got to find a publisher. And those two things are, those two little, they sound like two easy steps, but they're actually two huge steps. And they're actually more like leaps of faith to land those two things. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why don't you draw it? Yeah, you're a writer, you should be drawing. But I try to be objective about when I create a new project, I try to be objective about my skill set. Like, am I the right artist for this?
Okay.
Like I wouldn't have been the right artist for Fire Breather. And especially after I saw what Andy Kuhn did with it, only Andy Kuhn could make Fire Breather. And only Mike Huddleston could make the Coffin or a Deep Sleeper. So I try to cast myself objectively. And some projects I'm not right to draw. So yeah, it's a more complicated process than just saying, hey, I'm going to write a new book. And I have to say also, as I get older, I'm a little bit more objective about what I try to bring to the market. Like when I was 22, any idea I had, I was ready to like charge into the public square with and say, look at my masterpiece. And now if I get an idea, it's got to marinate until I think it's different from other books that are out there.
I understand, man. Doubt Barisha says he wanted to know if you've spoken yet, and you haven't. So let's hear about your collaborations with Kevin Smith on Quick Steps.
Yeah. So Kevin's writing a bunch of one-shots about basically unfilmed moments from the View Askew universe.
Sure.
And he pitched me to do one a long time ago, and I was like, well, yeah, I can do it, but it's got to be sort of like off the schedule, because I've got so much other stuff going on. And
sure.
And he's like, yeah, that's no problem. And so I would do like a page a week, maybe, and then, over the summer, they're like, hey, by the way, this is going to be issue 2 of this, and you got to finish right now. So I was like, well, I go, Kevin, I can't mess up Gotham City. That can't happen. So he's like, I understand, but we're going to make both happen. So we'll get
good.
There.
That's great, man. I haven't seen Clerks 3 yet. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I haven't been out of my studio for, months.
The great thing about Kevin, though, is too, like other movies, I believe we can get it digitally and don't have to see it. In fact, I don't know about you, man, but I'm debating, especially given how expensive movie tickets are here in Chicago, that I might just end up, buying the digital copy of Fletch.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure I will. I'm sure that's how I'll see it. How I'll see Clerks 3 eventually. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I've been listening to some interviews that he's done recently, not his own cast that he does with Mark Bernardin, which I love, but it's always good to hear him as an interviewer. And I really appreciate his point of view of podcasting. I mean, and there's our kinship. And it's something I've only met him very briefly once or twice. And I've never had the opportunity to really sit down and talk podcasting with him, but I would love to. Well,
I think have you ever heard him on Stern? And when you hear him on Stern, it's like it's clear that like he loves that form, and like he's a natural at it. So podcasting is a very natural avenue for his talents, I think, because he's very like I mean, people use glib in a negative. No, there's a gift to being able to talk about things extemporaneously, and he's definitely got it.
So agree, and also has given me the language to explain to potential advertisers about narrowcasting rather than broadcasting.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's certainly a smaller audience than a TV or radio audience. But that said, they are motivated. They support a lot of the books that I talk about, and they are actively listening and watching and are like, ooh, that sounds cool. I want that. So, there you go. Doubt says he saw Clerks 3 yesterday. Pretty good. Good to hear. Let's see. Zach, good 2-part question. You were my definitive Green Arrow artist. I loved your run with Kevin, Meltzer, and Winnick, indeed. It's rare to see an artist as the constant while others move in and out. And he says, what was it that kept you on the book through all the writer changes?
Bob Schreck, who was our editor on the title at the time. And people, if you know Bob, he's got a larger than life personality. And so just being in his orbit is like a reward in and of itself. So it was fun to work on that book. And also it was the first time, a lot of people don't remember this, but it's the first time that Andy and I got together on a big 2 project. Like all our collaborations before that were for a Dark Horse or smaller companies, and DC didn't feel like we should be together. Like they like we both broke in at DC around the same time, but I was over at Swamp Thing being inked by Kim DeMulder, and Andy was over on Catwoman inking Jim Balent. So like we were there at the same time, but not allowed to be together.
Understood.
Yeah. So Green Arrow was sort of like us finally being recognized as a team at DC. So we wanted to keep that rolling. And also, I don't know if people remember that, but for a long time, Green Arrow was DC's number one book. Shockingly, believe it or not, it was DC's number one book for a while. And so that book made royalties for a long time. And so I wasn't going to, we didn't leave until we had just been like, we drew it for 4+ years because we started early. We didn't want to run late, so we got an early jump on it. So we'd been working on it like for close to 4.5 years when we finally decided to quit. And we wanted to just sort of like, I think we wanted to kind of move into the Bat Office, and we sort of did with Nightwing from there.
Certainly, yes, absolutely. Well, and also, man, I'm so glad you mentioned Bob Schreck, because truly, both in the Bat Office and Green Arrow and stuff, he was really a special editor, and so many people that worked under him. I don't know if, because I know part of it was Denny's run, and I don't know if Denny passed along people like Rucka and Sean Martinborough on Detective and things like that. But it felt like, to me, you guys on Green Arrow, even though it was a couple of years later, it had that same kind of indie vibe where DC was experimenting beyond the traditional. There's nothing wrong with the traditional, but again, you guys coming off, your View Askew books for Oni and stuff like that, and then coming along to DC, it really was great. And also just rebooting Ollie from where he was during the Mike Grell years and stuff, and now it was, and then Jim Aparo. It's like, all right, now we got a new look.
Yeah, and I think I remember at the time, I was talking to Doug Monkey about it because he was drawing Justice League at the time, and we were both like guys on the Midwestern scene, and we both have like non-orthodox styles, and we were drawing DC's 1 and 2 books, and we were at a convention dinner or something, and we looked at each other and we were like, "Can you believe this? Or is this really what things are like now? Like they're going to let us do this?" And it was sort of the beginning of DC and Marvel both loosening up on what they considered an acceptable aesthetic for a superhero book, I think. And now we see that's like complete. That's like the doors are flung wide. Like, it's not weird to see Riley Rossmo drawing a Batman book now.
Right.
Whereas like if you took Riley Rossmo back in time 20 years, they wouldn't let him in the door at DC.
I hear you.
But things are wide open now, and I think we were lucky to be there at the beginning of that sort of expansion of the aesthetic.
Agreed. And also you doing the breakdowns for these new people, especially the YA graphic novels. I know you've said before that to me that you did the breakdowns and stuff. No, we're getting a lot of really interesting new styles with the traditional characters, and Marvel's doing the same thing. And I mean, it's great to see, and especially as a old fart and everything. And I mean, again, and again, you and I are close enough in age. I mean, we love the classics, and we love the Jim Aparos. We love the Don Newtons and people like that. Of course we do. God, weren't you? Didn't you recently, or did you pass on that Bruno Premiati or whatever and I'm sure I'm saying his last name on the Doom Patrol page.
Not to brag, but I already have a Bruno Premiati Doom Patrol page. It's better than that one. But
okay.
But but yeah, to go back to that, like the kids that are reading comics now, anyone under 50 is a kid. So like the kids reading comics now are people that came up on manga and anime and webtoons, and so they're what they're willing to accept aesthetically is already blown past what Julie Schwartz thought was a professional comic book writer. Sure. So to me, that's not sad. That's exciting. I mean, it's just some people that's sad. That's like, oh, the standards are gone. but like I talked to a fan who's quite a bit older than me, and he remembers people feeling that way about Jack Kirby. Like Jack Kirby was a weirdo, kind of destroying the classic illustrator aesthetic. And so, whoever comes along and they can do something new and exciting, bring it on, I say.
100%, man. I so agree with you. Let's get back to Gotham Year One and talk
Sure.
about Bruce's grandparents, and also, God, I love. I mean, it seems to be a nod to the Lindbergh kidnapping, even though it was in the 20s.
Yes.
But we've got apparently Thomas's sister, kidnapped, and that's obviously one of the big stories in the story.
Yeah, that's sort of that crime that sort of destroys the innocence of Gotham City, the way the Lindbergh sort of kidnapping sort of destroyed the innocence of the United States, or the perceived innocence, I should say.
Sure.
The innocence for middle class America, and that's what's happening. That's what's at the heart of this. That's sort of the original sin that sets all this stuff into motion in Gotham City, and Slam gets involved in this case. The cops get involved in this case, and they sort of butt heads, and the truth kind of shakes out, and the truth isn't pretty.
Understood. Yeah, and I can only imagine the type of cop that is, running around in 1961 Gotham. We got a taste of it in Batman Year One, of course, back in the day with Miller and Mazzucchelli and everything. But yeah, it's it's so funny. Of course, it's called Gotham, and that's New York's nickname. But there's a lot of Chicago in
in the way I draw it, at least there's that's sort of my experience with big cities is mostly Chicago.
Sure.
And, but well, to be honest, for me, Ottumwa, Iowa is a big city. I live in a town of 1,000 people, so if it's got a McDonald's, it's big to me. But yeah, my experience is mostly with like places like Chicago, and it's got the tough thing to capture and the fun thing to capture about Gotham City is that it's got to be beautiful and scary at the same time, and there's got to be a visible underbelly and the sort of majesty to it at the same time, and that's the fun part about working on it.
That's cool. I remember
we're going to see some parts of Gotham City, believe it or not, that we haven't seen before, because
that's good.
By the time of Batman, they don't exist. They're washed away, and so it's kind of neat to see what could have been with Gotham City.
I understand, man. It's funny. I was watching the historian Robert Caro on an old C-SPAN interview, and he mentioned his book about New York, and the city planner Moses was the last name, and how he destroyed some neighborhoods to make room for various highways and things like that in the city. And so I can only imagine that's going to be great. That sounds amazing. Yeah. Doubt wants to know, Tom King is always so cool in person and writes amazing stories. How was your experience on this project so far?
I've been learning a lot as a writer, working from Tom. I've been very lucky that I've been on this string of like really amazing collaborators, like I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, and I've learned something different from all of them. And the thing that Tom does that is still a mystery to me is usually I can tell where a story is going when I start reading. When I'm reading a script, I can usually tell where it's going.
Sure.
Because I've been doing this for 35 years, so I kind of know. And Tom still has Tom's been writing comics for a while now, but he still has what I would call an outsider perspective on these legends, at least on a way to crack them and explore them his way. If I were ever given Green Lantern, I have all these ideas I'm going to do this and this and this, and I'm going to harken back to all these things that I dug about when I was a kid. And Tom doesn't think about it that way. Tom thinks, I'm given Green Lantern. Well, here's some experience I've had that, I'm going to interpret through the lens of Green Lantern. And he does that with Batman really well, and he does it with. But there's certain territory that Batman can't cover that Slam Bradley can, and it's mostly about like the license for violence that police have, and the unlicensed violence that people use on each other all the time, and how that plays out in everybody's life, and the kind of impact that can have in society as a whole. And it's the brutality we kind of look away from, and we're doing a lot of that right now. I mean, we look away from a lot of brutality in America and all over the world, and it's really like Gotham. It's not a political manifesto in any way. It's a great noir story, and it's a great story about Slam Bradley. And there's tons of romance, and there's tons of cool action, but it's also about like the price we pay for using violence as a way to mold society, and the price is heavy. And it's sort of it's when I explain it to people that don't know about comics, I explain it to them as a story about why Batman needs to exist. And like, Batman doesn't need to exist in a healthy society. But
sure.
So how did Gotham City get to the point where it needs Batman? And Tom's really good at like pinpointing those moments and making them personal and making them emotional and making them fun to read about. I mean, well, fun might be the wrong word, but they're thrilling to read about.
Yeah, entertaining and thrilling. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dan also wondered, and it's okay, you don't have to say this, but he said, if you don't mind answering, what issue are you currently working on?
But by the time 1 comes out, I'll be working on 4, and then, cruising right along from there. And they're giant size. Well, I don't want to say giant size issues, but they're Tom King size issues, so they're 28 pages. So it's a meaty. Okay. It's a meaty book.
And is it 6 or 12?
6.
It's 6. Great. And again, Black Label. So always happy to see that. I really love the Black Label line, and I'm so glad that they have found a way to tell more adult stories. Not that there's anything wrong with the regular universe, but it really does give, it lends itself to more experimentation. And yeah, man, no, Tom is really, like you said, some of these characters, he has found new niches within them to explore.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, God, Adam Strange was just it's not the story you think it's going to be. And It was amazing. And the same thing goes obviously with Mr. Miracle. And,
well, you knew that with him right out of the box with Omega Men, you knew like this guy has a different perspective on things.
You're right.
And I will say that even though it's sort of has a mature reader's vibe to it, there's nothing like, there's disturbing themes to it, but there's nothing that in it that would make them say, this has got to be a Vertigo book or a Black Label book. It's just that the themes are not super, like when you don't want to go out and buy this for your kid who likes Batman.
Right. Right. Absolutely. No. And again, and the same thing goes from the humor side to what Warner's is letting Pat Schumacher and the Harley Quinn animated people do in the cartoon. And it's like, that's amazing. And again, because I get it. And especially someone who's read this for a long time, that it's like, yeah, but Batman's still on a birthday cake and sheets and stuff. Yeah. So we can't go too far. And it's like, well, yeah, we can. We can do it over here in Black Label. And again, Slam is a great character to exist on this imprint.
Yeah, because he could sort of slide back and forth between those two worlds pretty easily. He can function in a DC universe that had 0 superheroes.
100%, yeah.
And he could also meet Dr. Fate,
Sure. No, absolutely. And again, you're right. And that's what I love about the first generation of DC characters, Dr. Occult and Slam and some of these others, that I almost want them to kind of be there and just kind of look and shake their heads at all the costume guys that come after them and everything. They're like, yeah, whatever. All I know is I got my right hook. I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is good because I've only been showing black and white pages, but we know Jordie Bellaire is coloring it. So no, the series is not going to be black and white, as Zach was wondering. But it
No,
gives
it's
us an opportunity to talk about Jordie's wonderful work on it.
yeah. Jordie Bellaire is coloring it, and we fought hard to get her on the book. And she's got a everybody's doing like daring things with their book, with this book. Like everyone's pushing their skill set with this book, and she definitely is. And like she was sending me test pages like, oh, here's the approach I want to take, is this too far out? And I was like, no, do it. And then Ben would be like, wait, that is too far out. Like, come on back a little bit. Because we like I was for pushing the envelope on all that stuff. So but what Jordie's doing is really incredible, because believe it or not, I'm kind of hard to color. My work is very, very graphic and flat, and dark. And so when a colorist sees it, they're tempted to do one of two things, which is either try to soften those flat shapes,
Sure,
with modeling, or they will try to use dark colors to go with my dark shapes. And I don't want either of those things to happen. I want those flat planes. I want them to look abstracted and angular. And then also I want to control what's light and dark in a story. And so really what I want from a colorist are color choices. And I want them to see color choices in a different way. And Jordie does that like crazy. Like Jordie's color choices are unearthly. I mean, they're always right, but she knows a way to do. She has the key to using non-literal colors in a way that still conveys the story without. She's like David Fincher, but for comic book colors. So like the light is natural, but it looks alien. In a Fincher film. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And she's got a way to like take colors that we've seen before, but use them in a combination that can like unsettle you a little bit and push you out of your comfort zone, but you still know what you're looking at, which is like almost a unique skill set, and she's got it.
Was this the first time you've worked with Jordie as a colorist?
Yeah, I've tried to get her many times, but this is the first time I've worked with her.
So was it an easy conversation in terms of, what you wanted?
Yeah, it's like a huge mutual admiration society when we talk. Like I'm like, do whatever you want. And, I'm ready for whatever you want to do. And I've never seen her do anything that I thought was a false note on the book. And like I said, I'm not easy to color. So it's incredible to see her jump right in and get it right away.
I don't remember who was coloring. Oh God, now the name's on my tip of my tongue, and you'll say it right away. Whoever was coloring Matt Wagner's Sandman Mystery Theater when he was working with great artists.
Was it Sherilyn van Valkenburg?
Oh, the colorist might have been. I'm not sure, but Jordie, I've been allowed to see the first issue. I didn't want to show any images. Stick with what I've seen.
Are you talking about Sandman? I thought you were talking about Sandman Mystery Theater.
I was talking about Sandman Mystery Theater.
It might be. It's all good.
Guy.
Guy Major.
Yeah. Guy drew it, and I don't know who colored him.
Guy Davis drew it. Yeah.
Guy Davis, thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't know who colored Guy on Mystery Theater, but Jordie's colors on this remind me of
somebody with Google will tell us in a minute. But
there you go. Yeah, exactly. That's the great thing about having in my audience. They usually do, and they hunt it down.
Whenever I remember great coloring from the past, I remembered Sherilyn van Valkenburg, and I wish we had her back. I don't know what she's doing now.
Understood. Alex also wants to know, he never noticed till the preview pages of Danger Street. Now, I don't know, again, this is Gotham City Year One, but he wonders if Marv from Sin City perhaps was based on Slam Bradley. I've never heard Frank say that. I don't think so.
It's more like the other way around.
Yeah, I mean,
well, he's born out of that hard-boiled aesthetic that Slam Bradley was definitely, culled from the pulps.
Yes.
And every hard-boiled thing that existed before that informed Sin City. but we're sort of doing like a dark side Thanos reverse thing too, because as visually, he definitely harkens back to not only Sin City but Marv himself, because that's like my favorite Frank Miller thing. I love Sin City, and so a chance to sort of inject a little Sin City into Gotham City. I'm gonna let those influences fly. I'm not gonna hide anything there.
It also reminds me, and again, you said Mitchum was one of your models. The end of the Yakuza movie that he made, which I love. It's one of those great movies that is easily dismissed because it's like, what the hell's Robert Mitchum doing in that Yakuza movie? But it's so great, and it really has the way it was shot, a very graphic novel look. And there's a moment at the end of the movie where he's just beaten up and bloody and everything, and it's very Slam Bradley. It's very
yeah, definitely. We, like I said, we were trying to find a balance between a matinee idol and like the catcher's mitt era Robert Mitchum face, and so we're seeing transition from those two phases.
Understood. Well, obviously, Alex really appreciate the influences, and you see, Zach, thank you, man.
Oh, okay.
David Hornegg was the main colorist. He says David Lloyd and Mike Danza were also on colors.
Yeah, I did not remember that David colored some of that. That's incredible.
Agreed.
Well, when you think about his colors on V for Vendetta, that really fits Sandman Mystery Theater too.
I respect his choices, but I've had conversations with David recently, and I love what he's doing with Aces Weekly. But I'm so bummed that he's kind of retired from doing pages anymore or covers. And it's like, oh, David,
it's really weird. But he's so committed to Aces Weekly, and like I think he works just as hard getting that together as he ever did drawing. But I like you, I'm 56, so like I spend the same amount of time at the board, but not the same amount of pages come off the board. It's taxing, and also the older I get, the less I'm like when I was talking about like what books I'm willing to bring to market. I feel that way about my art too. Like when I was 22, I would just hammer out pages, and I was just so excited to be there. I didn't care. Like I was in a band. I didn't care if I couldn't play my chords,
I'm with you. Yes.
And now I let less go, enthusiasm is not enough to make me let a page go now. I don't want to ever get to the point where like Alex Toth at the end of his career, where every page is a manifesto about, not only his drawing style, but like what he considers acceptable heroic fiction. I don't want to get to that point, but I can feel it creeping on me. Like this page has got to say something about me and the way I approach comics. I can't just dash off pages anymore. And so that's the older I get, the more that creeps up on me. And it seems to be creeping up exactly as I get more proficient. So I can't get faster. Like those two things are like in a constant equilibrium. But it's the work I feel better about than I ever have. So I'm really excited for people to see Gotham City Year One, and I hope they're as rewarded by reading it as I am by drawing it.
Again, I'm so thrilled that you guys are doing this. It's my kind of story. Oh, funny. Usab, we mentioned it earlier, but he was a fan of your Valentine's Day short.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it was sort of like Rom was okay with me doing like unconventional layouts with it, and like kind of having fun with it, and it was sort of like the first time I always felt like I'm lucky to be at DC at all. So I should just like take my porridge and go back to my table and like do my work. And that's one of the stories I decided like, well, I'm here. People know what I do. I should push it a little bit and kind of do some of the daring stuff that I did in Family Tree with Jeff Lemire and bring that to DC. And nobody said boo. They let me do it. And so I think that led to exactly the kind of stuff I'm doing on Gotham City.
That's great, man. And again, you're not the first artist to tell me that as they get older, they are a little bit more careful with what they're putting out. And like you
Yeah.
said, you don't want to get to the point of paralysis, but by the same token, no, you want it to matter, and I get that. And again,
Yeah.
we see it on the page, man, and that's why we're very excited for next Tuesday when Gotham City Year Run starts. So
Awesome.
I mean, yeah, man. Hey, we can leave it there, Phil. I know obviously someone's trying to call you, so I don't want to mess you up.
That's my mother-in-law. She's the only person that's still. I keep a landline just to talk to my mother-in-law. She's 2 doors down, and I'm her primary caregiver. My wife's home right now, but during the day, like if a light bulb needs changed or something needs taken out to the mailbox, that's the noise I hear. So,
I understand. All right, I can appreciate that. Well, real fast, any? I mean, do you have time to watch any streaming things? I mean, are you digging anything as far as what's been out there these days?
boy, I guess I'm trying to keep up with Rings of Power.
Okay.
I've been liking that, and I watched Stranger Things, of course, because that hit my it's right in my nostalgia zone. Like I'm the same age as Steve from that show, like exactly the age of Steve. So like, I used to watch that. I watched that, and it's definitely a nostalgia bath for my brain. So that's a fun show, and it's like watching it feels like reading X-Men comics to me from that era.
Sure.
It's like cliffhanger after cliffhanger, and
Sure.
little romance relationships thrown in, and it has that vibe. It has that X-Men vibe. So it's a lot of fun. But
go ahead.
no, and I'm reading stuff, and so, but yeah, I'm working so much that I have a hard time keeping up with anything.
I understand, man.
Unless you count my fourth re-listen to the entire run of Gunsmoke, which I've done while I was
my guy. Absolutely,
Well, I've been drawing Gotham City. I re-listened all the way through Gunsmoke and all the way through Vic and Sade
That's awesome. Vic and Sade, the comedy, sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man. Another show I love Gunsmoke, and I always say William Conrad was like the Spencer Tracy of radio.
He's a top 4 voice actor of all time.
I so agree. But another show that I love, and I don't know, we never talked about it, Pat Novak for Hire.
Oh, I love that. That's like the best Jack Webb thing. Easily.
Agreed. And I love Dragnet, but oh my God. And all the metaphors,
It's so over the top.
He was as lonely as a warm beer on a bar, whatever. And it's like, yeah, exactly.
It's so over the top. And it's cool to see Jack Webb metamorphosize from the hippest guy in the world to the squarest guy in the world over like 15 years. It only takes 15 years, but it comes for all of us.
Exactly. Man, again, Andy and Gabe and I have talked about this as well. It's that fascination with Jack Webb. And yeah, man, he was a bebop, jazz guy, and, married to Julie London and everything. And, like the hottest jazz chanteuse, of the 50s. And then all of a sudden, all right, mister, straighten up cut that hair, hippie, and put down that reefer. It's
weird. But it happened to all of us, I guess. I hope it doesn't happen to me. I'm 56. I'm hanging in.
Hey, bud, I'm 58 coming up for me. I'm right ahead of you. But I hear what you're saying. And also, I was going to say about Webb. You ever hear? I've only heard of 1 or 2 of these, but he had a comedy where it was kind of an avant-garde sketch comedy show, and it was really interesting. Or mentioning Mitchum, you ever see his movie The Last Time I Saw Archie, which is like a soldier movie from the early 60s, and it's before the second run of Dragnet.
Right. No, I hadn't.
Okay. Well, there you go. We're gonna have to work on that. But no problem. And hey, next week, everybody, cannot wait for the debut of Gotham City Year One. A great team and a hell of an artist, and I'm always happy to talk to Phil Hester. Cannot wait, man. It's congratulations, and I'm very excited for these 6 issues, man. And as always, I'm sorry it's been so long since we chatted.
I know we wanted to talk earlier, but I knew this was coming up, and I said, hang on, wait till Gotham City, and we'll talk about that then.
Worth the wait, my man, as always. And I'll see you soon. Again, I guess neither of us are doing any conventions till the end of the year, but Terrificon next year.
All right.
It'll be fantastic.
Awesome, John. Thank you again.
Phil Hester, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Tomorrow, Scott Snyder's going to join us. That'll be a great conversation. Yep. And then
talk about an upgrade.
And then a double feature on Wednesday. Brad Meltzer early, 6 o'clock Eastern time, and then 8 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be talking to Franco, because Franco's got a brand new Dead Man anthology that he's done.
Wow!
Just in time for Halloween. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate your enthusiasm. And
I'm definitely the warm up act for that level of guest.
Yeah, I don't think so. But here, wait, let's see if any final. There you go. Zach says thank you, and Usab says looking forward to it. Thank you, man. And 64-page special says your mother-in-law wanted to say she saw you on Word.
No, that's not why she's calling.
Yeah, I understand, man. Thanks, Phil. Thanks everybody for watching.